City and county leaders gathered in Evansville for a public forum tonight. Discussions centered on the challenges they're facing following the passage of Senate Enrolled Act 1, specifically with its cuts on property taxes. Gabe Pontonis was there and heard from local leaders as well as those who live nearby.
This is much more than budgets. This is much more than numbers on a spreadsheet. This is truly about people.
The League of Women Voters wanted to make it easier for those interested in local politics to stay informed. They hosted a special town hall forum at EVPL Central about the impact of property tax cuts from Senate Enrolled Act 1. That's an issue organizers say is very important for people to know about.
Voters, citizens, have a responsibility to be informed and to engage. The public and voting is the bedrock of our democracy, and if they don't pay attention and they don't vote, then they're neglecting our democracy.
The meeting started with a short presentation, followed by an open discussion panel with city and county leaders. Officials say lower property taxes are leaving leaders with less money to work with for things like infrastructure and law enforcement.
Very plainly, it means we have some tough decisions to make. With having such uncertainty about what's ahead, it makes it difficult for us to plan. It makes it difficult for us to plan capital investments. Just in our last budget cycle, just as an example, we put a major infrastructure project on hold because we were not certain we can make the match.
Some in the audience voiced their concerns. One of their main complaints was even with the tax cuts, they aren't seeing much relief due to the skyrocketing value of their property. Residents and officials discussed what could help, including a wheel tax. One resident even proposed taxing wagers on gambling. Officials say it was nice to share their side with the public, and residents were happy they could be heard.
I thought the meeting was very good. I thought the office holders were, my gosh, congenial to one another, and they all seemed to recognize the problems, finding solutions and agreeing on those.
Officials say even though the future is uncertain, meetings like these are a good start when it comes to finding solutions.